to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She's an award winning singer, songwriter, pianist, concert artist, and best selling author who founded musical creation, no other than Miss Frances Drost.
Hello, everybody. Hello,
Welcome
Daniel.
to welcome to Book 101, Miss Frances. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Well, I think you've wrapped it up pretty good. I am a musician, and I've also been writing books, and I love cats. I love snow. I love riding motorcycles, and I live in Pennsylvania. Um, I started playing the piano when I was just a little girl, and then in my 30s, I started writing songs and began to have the opportunity to sing different places and do recordings. And one thing led to another, and here I am living this creative life.
Yes. And Miss Frances Drost, thank you so much for sharing your talent, knowledge to the world. Can you share the meaning behind the title Why White?
Portraits of White was originally a song about snow. I was driving in a very snowy road one day, and it just was, I was in a world of white, and I began to have this idea for a song. So I started writing. It's just a fun song about snow. But then when I started working on a Christmas album, we chose songs I had been writing, and that's part of the story of my book. But we liked the title, Portraits of White, for my album because we wanted it to be as much winter, not just Christmas, but winter time. So that became Portraits of White. And so it started as a song about snow, but it has become my story about my struggle with the holidays. But I didn't know it was going to be that when I wrote the song. It was just an innocent song about snow.
Was there a specific moment or experience that sparked the idea for Portraits of White?
You mean the book or the song?
Both, Miss
Both.
Frances.
Um, well, the song started everything. Portraits of White, and it was portraits of snow blowing across the mountains and the roads. But then um, I also realized that I had this thing around the holidays, specifically Christmas holidays, where I always felt this looming sadness come over me. And I discovered that part of the reason I love snow is because I feel like it brightens up the world in the wintertime. In Pennsylvania, it can be pretty gray during the winter, and so the snow for me just brightens everything up. And in my own life with the holidays, I felt like I just always had this recurring dread and sadness. And I wanted to see what that's about. And I know that from your writing, it seems like you value digging deep in your heart and trying to find out what makes you happy, what brings you joy. And I found that the holidays made me sad. So I decided one year to actually skip the holidays, skip all the trappings that went with it, the pressure of buying gifts and um, decorating, cookie making, which sometimes is fun, but when you put it all together, I just felt this pressure to be a really bubbly person at the holidays, but truly, I didn't feel that at the holidays. And I value being real about my feelings and the things that I'm experiencing and paying attention to things that are uncomfortable in my soul, because I've found that it when we do that, it leads us to joy. It leads us moving forward in our life instead of stuffing our feelings and ignoring them and filling our life with busyness or food or or whatever, we if we stop and pay attention to those pain points, it can actually lead us to health and feeling better. And so that year I decided I would pay attention to my feelings and I would skip Christmas and I would take extra time to read the nativity story, which I had grown up hearing all my life and embracing. But at that time I just felt like I knew it too well, and I needed to step back and just re-examine the holidays and everything. And so I did that, and I just got real quiet a lot. And every day I tried to take walks, to journal, to be quiet. And in the end, I began writing songs, and they seemed very special and very real. And so I ended up doing a Christmas album, which was a compilation of that journey and those songs. And then I felt like, well, I began to understand that other people struggle with the holidays too, but people are afraid to talk about it. So I thought, why don't I share my songs on stage at Christmas and call it Portraits of White? Because that was the song, and we felt like that really embodied my journey in some odd way, because snow to me adds sparkle and life, and that's what I needed for the holidays. I needed new joy, I needed sparkle and life in my heart in a new way. So it became a whole thing. It became a song, it became a show, and then it became a book where I felt like I should capture my story on pages and offer my audience and my listeners another layer to the songs and to my life.
Very well said, Miss Frances.
Thank you.
Beautifully articulated. What was the writing process like for this particular book? Was it emotional, healing, or challenging?
I think it was wonderful. I think the challenging part came from living through the sadness at Christmas. It took me 40 years to write the book. What I mean is, my book is really an expression of my life growing up and the things that I went through, which created the sadness around the holidays. And so that was the challenging part, was living it and trying to figure out why I was sad at Christmas. The joy came when I actually sat down to write the book, and it took me 7, 8 months to write the book. But it's because I had so processed my feelings that now I felt like it wasn't as challenging emotional as it could have been. I think the challenge came before I wrote the book. I encountered other challenges when I wrote the book, and that was more just about, oh, am I good enough to write a book? I'm used to playing the piano, I'm used to writing songs, but am I good enough to write a book? And so that was more the challenge for me. But I decided in January, the one year, that I would take time every day and I would write. And fortunately, I journal a lot, so I went through my journals from my whole life and just reread my life and captured things from my journal. And the songs on the album were kind of my guide. Every chapter became not just a story about the song, but the story of how I processed the holidays and how I processed life. So I feel like the hard part was the first 40 years of my life living with some of the stuff. The easier part was writing the book, but then that presented new challenges. I think when you learn a new creative thing, there's a different kind of challenge. There's just the logistical, how do I do this? How do I put a book together? But then there is the, well, am I good enough to put this together and present it to the world? And I bet you
Miss
experience that. For my listeners who will hear this, you have written a lot of books, I saw, and so has writing always come easy for you? Or was there a time, maybe you still face that, am I good enough to do this.
Yes. I'm good enough of what I'm writing. Is it that people like it, or I'm just doing something that people doesn't like it?
Yeah.
Is there's still a validation in my on my in on myself that am I doing the right thing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, Miss Frances, what role does faith in any play in the message of your book?
Faith plays a big part in it. I was raised with faith. I was raised in the disciplines of prayer and journaling and fasting, and so actually, for me to struggle with holidays seemed odd, and for a long time, I was, I guess you could say, maybe ashamed of it. I didn't want people to know that I struggled inwardly, but faith is important enough to me that I felt like I needed to iron out the wrinkles, or um, I'm not sure if I'm explaining it well, but I felt like to work out my faith, I needed to write this story. And so faith is always there, but sometimes the lack of it can actually lead me to dig deeper. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, Miss
Yeah.
Frances.
Okay.
What are some practical ways readers can find comfort and inspiration during difficult holiday seasons?
Oh, I love that question. I like to say pay attention to the discomfort because it's a clue and it will actually help you move forward. I like to say if you have lost someone in the past year and now you're facing the holidays, you could go a couple directions. Either try to create brand new traditions during those holidays, something that will give you new memories. That can be helpful. Go to a whole different country or climate, listen to different music than you might normally listen to. Like, just give yourself a chance to experience new things, but then also pay attention to what are some traditions you might not be able to do anymore because you've lost someone or something, or you've had to move. Just acknowledge and be aware. I think awareness is key during the holidays. Just be aware that you experience what you do. And I even encourage people to get a journal, to get a book, to draw or to write. Um, when you see or hear something that sparks grief or even joy, to note it and to write it down and pay attention to why did it do that? What does it make you feel? Is there another time in your life where you felt that same thing? And it's amazing how writing and paying attention can, it's therapeutic, and we begin to see patterns in our life you might not see if you didn't take the time to write them down or acknowledge them.
Miss Frances, what will be your short term and long term goals in writing and music and all the activities that you're doing right now?
Oh, I've heard you ask other guests that question. I thought, um, it's a good question. Um, Short term, it's very easy when you probably know, as you have a new product out, it can actually feel like you want to move on to the next thing now because you've spent your time putting all this effort into it and you're ready to move to the next book or the next music album. And I've learned over time to not be so quick to try to rush ahead to the next thing. So I do have long-term goals, but I think for me the biggest thing is to let Portraits of White have her time right now and let that unfold. It has opened up different doors and different conversations with people than I've ever had before because it's a book, and I really value that. So I feel like I just want to kind of let this child have some time to grow up and mature. I certainly have another other book ideas in my heart, but right now I'm working on a new music album, so that has become my main focus, short term and long term. to be ready for that album and to have that completed in a couple years.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Frances. And what
Thank you.
would be your advice for those people out there who want to write their own music or they want to write their own book?
Oh, just do it. Just start, keep going, and have fun. Try not to write with any kind of imposition on yourself. Just write and have fun, and then see where it goes.
Write and stop procrastinating, people. If you have the passion to write in music, in anything, please do share to the world. So, Miss Frances, are the stories in your book drawn from personal experience, other stories, or mix of both?
It is I would say that it's strong, leans strongly toward my own personal story, because I feel like that's what I know. I do tie in other quotes, other stories about other people and how they've impacted my life, but it is mostly my story, both as a person of faith wrestling with the holidays, and then as a musician wrestling with trying to get my songs good enough to do an album and to share with the world. So it's a multi-layered, um, partly memoir book.
How do you suggest people create new traditions when old ones are too painful?
Oh, I think number one, you have to acknowledge that the old ones are painful. Uh, I think that was part of my hang up. I was afraid to acknowledge what was really the issue for me. And for me, I'd lost siblings when we were little, accidental, tragic deaths. But I kind of tried to bury the grief and just pretend it didn't exist. And I didn't know I was doing that as a child, but it came out later in my songwriting. So I think, first of all, it's a big step to acknowledge and just say, I really miss, these are traditions we had at the holidays, and they no longer exist. And just say, that hurts. It's hard. But then think outside the box. Just start, like for me, I'm married, but I don't have children. So family looks very different for me at every holiday, not just Christmas, but usually holidays, families get together, and I don't have that kind of thing. I don't have children. I do have a husband, but so I started thinking, well, who else in my life might be in my same kind of situation? And I thought of a couple who, they had children, but they were all grown and they all have their own life, and they're too busy to get together with their parents at the holidays. So I invited that couple to my house, and we had a Christmas brunch. And it's amazing how just serving different food. I mean, normally we would have eaten a big dinner around 5 o'clock as a family, turkey, stuffing, chicken, whatever, mashed potatoes in Pennsylvania is what we would do. So I invited this couple over to have breakfast or brunch. So we ate at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I served a whole different menu of food, and we created a new tradition. It wasn't the same time, it wasn't the same food, and it's scary. It's scary to try something new. But and another time, my husband and I went away for the holidays, and that felt scary because you don't know how to feel in a new place. But that's kind of the point of doing this. You allow yourself to feel new feelings, create new memories, see new beauty. And so that would be my advice. Like, be aware that you feel that way, acknowledge it, and then try to find something new to do.
Yes, try something new, people. Did writing this book change your own perspective on the holidays?
I think it was the final it was the final bow on the package, maybe so to speak. I had already been doing a major shift in how I view the holidays in a good way. And I feel like the book just kind of solidified it, and it helped me get that 30,000 foot view of my life and how it was all starting to fit together. And it was a beautiful, as I was writing it, my first intention was to just share with my listeners and those who already loved my music, just share a little bit more of the story than I'd ever shared before. But as I was writing it, I said to myself, this is a much bigger story than just the songs and the album and Christmas. This is a story about taking time to acknowledge something that feels off in your life, and then finding joy and healing and moving forward from that.
Well, Miss Frances, again, very well said. Thank you for your empowering answer. Before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, other podcast, because my abstract essay, it's in its fifth season, people, abstract poetry in our second season, and book 101 review in its fifth season, comedy 101 in its second season, food 101 is in fifth season, Geography 101 in third season. People, love letters in the third season too. And my baby podcast, Mental Health 101 and Movie 101 review in its fourth season, as well on Music 101 and Science 101. And of course, my third season of Sex 101. Please do listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Frances, my last question is, do you plan to write a follow up or companion piece to Portraits of White?
I have something in mind, yes. Do I plan to? I do, but right now I'm very focused on my music project that I'm working on, a new Christmas album. So, but yes, I have started writing another book that digs even deeper into my story. But I don't want to give any of it away yet. Is that okay?
Yes,
'Cause,
no spoilers.
yeah.
No spoilers. So I'm inviting you to come over on Music 101 and let's talk about music because Music 101 is created to empower music itself and legendary icon in the music industry. And Miss Frances, again, thank you so much for sharing your books to the world, your knowledge, your talent, and keep up the good work. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book as well as your music itself?
Sure. And thank you so much for having me on. I'm so impressed with your podcast. They can go to francesdrost.com. You can find Portraits of White at any bookstore, wherever books are sold. I'd love to meet your people.
Yes, people, I support Miss Frances Drost because if you support her, more and more and more empowering music to come, more and more empowering books to come. So, Miss Frances, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.